Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. All of us want love, but what is the greatest love of all? Is it the love of a partner, our beloved, our soulmate, a twin flame? Or is it the love of a friend, or the love of our children, or the love of a dog? Is self-love perhaps the greatest love of all? Let's do a reality check, and you'll find that human love, or mundane love, is conditional, is unreliable, and is temporary. If people do not meet our needs, if they do not act within our boundaries, or if they treat us as we think, if they do not treat us as we think they should, either we will leave or they will. On the other hand, the highly evolved saint Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Devotion says that the highest form of love is divine love, or love of God, or Bhakti Yoga, different names for the same thing. The highest expression of divine love is one has no desire in one's heart except to love the divine or God, not because of what you'll get from this love, not for knowledge even, or personal benefit, but only to satisfy the Supreme Beloved through surrender, devotion, and selfless service. Now, this might all sound like a very, very strange concept in today's time, when everything is about what's in it for me. When it's not about surrender, when it's about, it's just all about the ego. But divine love talks of these three things: surrender, devotion, and selfless service. And each of these three words indicates a letting go of the ego. The ego is a vital part of the mind. It's our identity. It's who we think we are. And the mind cannot function without it, so how can we let it go? We can not let it go, but we can give up our false identity, which is based upon gender. I'm a man, or a woman, or trans, or my age, I'm an adult, or child, or young, or old. My nationality, I'm American, or Indian, or race, black or white. My career, I'm an employee, I'm an entrepreneur, and so on. These are all identities, roles that we take on based on this body. When we understand that I'm not defined by my body, that I've had many bodies over many lifetimes, neither am I defined by my mind or my egoic identities. I'm not even defined by my life story, by the things I own, the things I have done or not done. Then we come to the ultimate truth, when we peel off all the layers, that I'm a spiritual being, a soul, and full of endless possibilities. And as I let go my false self and enter into the real, eternal, everlasting truth about who I am, an infinitesimal part of God, I have a relationship with the Supreme Being, a relationship based on love, pure, unmotivated, unending, unlimited, unconditional love. That is what we've all been looking for in this world and haven't found. I don't know about you, but that was what mattered to me. The urge to look for this highest quality of love lies in all of us, because we are all lovers of God. The science of cultivating this love is called bhakti. The best place to learn about divine love is from those that have attained, experienced, and shared how it feels. Let's learn from them. In the previous chapter, we learned about how Krishna left his home in Vrindavan and went to Mathura. And if you've been following along, we've been talking about how Krishna left his home in Vrindavan. When he went to Mathura, there was so much sadness in everyone's hearts. While he was there, he killed the demoniac king Kans. I think you might have been, if you've been following along, or if you haven't, let's bring it back to you. Um, all right. Yes. So while he was there, he'd killed the demoniac king Kans and rescued his birth parents from the jail where they had been imprisoned for almost 18 years. He then continued to live with his birth parents, and he sent his dear friend Uddhava to comfort the parents, friends, and lovers who he had left behind in Vrindavan. And now that Uddhava had arrived in Vrindavan to comfort them, and he had come with a message from Krishna, he was in for a big shock. But before we start, I want to really share that this episode, this particular one in as such, is so deep, is so profound, that I really find myself incapable of being able to do it justice. There is so much here that it is difficult for a beginner to understand, and I'm just a beginner, and I cannot dive into the very depths of what is here. But I ask you to bear with me in all humility and try to understand the feeling, the depth of love of these people of Vrindavan. We're going to be talking about love in separation, the greatest, the ultimate aspect of divine love. So, as our story continues, the women of Vrindavan rose from bed and began lighting lamps. They worshipped their household deities, and then they began churning the yogurt into butter. And as they pulled on their churning ropes with bangled arms, they shone with the splendor of their jewels, which reflected the lamp's light. Their hips, breasts, and necklaces moved about, and their faces, anointed with reddish kumkum, glowed radiantly with the luster of their earrings, reflecting from their cheeks. Till today, people make butter and ghee in the same way. In fact, you can buy ghee from India. It comes from the A2 cows, and it's called Bilona, Bilona, ghee, made by exactly the same process in which they did thousands of years ago. So as the ladies of Vraj loudly sang, and while they were churning the butter, they were singing the glories of the lotus-eyed Krishna. And their songs were about how he would steal butter and how he would play his flute and how he would take care of the cows. And now that he was gone, their hearts were broken. They were missing him like crazy. That beautiful child, that beautiful beloved, was no longer in their midst. And they had given their hearts to him. And you know how it is when your beloved is gone. It's the most painful thing. So as the ladies of Vraj loudly sang the glories of the lotus-eyed Krishna, their songs blended with the sound of their churning and ascended to the sky and dissipated all inauspiciousness in every direction. When the sun had risen, the people of Vraj noticed that the golden chariot in front of King Nanda's doorway. King Nanda is the father of Krishna. So now there was a golden chariot. Remember, these were people who lived in a village where they raised cows. So they didn't have such things. They had carts and stuff like that, but not golden chariots. Here was a golden chariot in front of King Nanda's doorway. And they began to wonder, who does this belong to? Perhaps Akrura has returned. Oh, Akrura. Akrura was the one who had taken Krishna away. He was his uncle. And they had begged Krishna and Balaram not to leave. They had feared that they would never return. And so that's exactly what was happening. Their worst nightmare was coming true. Perhaps Akrura has returned, he who fulfilled the desire of King Kans by taking away Krishna to Mathura. Is Akrura now going to use our flesh to offer funeral oblations for his master who was so satisfied for his service? As the women were speaking in this way, Uddhava appeared. So remember, it was Krishna's friend now who had come with the message, Uddhava. He had appeared having finished his early morning duties. What are these duties? Usually you get up, you bathe, you meditate, you chant mantras. This is the way of the Vedic culture. The young women of Vraj became astonished upon seeing Uddhava. Krishna's messenger, he had long arms. His eyes resembled a newly grown lotus, and he wore a yellow garment and lotus garland, and his lotus face glowed with brightly polished earrings. These are the gopis looking at Uddhava. He was truly handsome. They said, "Who is this handsome man? Where has he come from? And whom does he serve? He's wearing Krishna's clothes and ornaments." Saying this, the gopis eagerly crowded around Uddhava, whose shelter was the Lord, who himself was surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna. Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka is a beautiful name of Krishna, which means one who is glorified with the most choice and beautiful of poetry and verses and song. Bowing their heads in humility, the gopis duly honored Uddhava with their shy, smiling glances and pleasing words. They took him to a quiet place and seated him comfortably and began to question him, for they recognized him to be a messenger from Krishna, the master of the goddess of fortune. So this is the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the wife of Vishnu. And Vishnu and Krishna are essentially the same. Krishna is the informal aspect. Vishnu is the formal aspect. Vishnu is what you get it's like when you go to the official place, you meet the president of the country, you meet the CEO, you meet a judge. He's in his official outfit. And then when you come home, that's the intimate aspect. That's Krishna. So the gopis said, "We know that you are the personal servant of Krishna and you have come here on the order of your good master who desires to give pleasure to his parents." So they figured all this out now very quickly. "We see nothing else he might consider worth remembering in these cow pastures of Braj." So they're saying, why would he think of us? He sent you to meet with his parents, of course. And they were his lovers, all of them. Indeed, the bonds of affection for one's family members are difficult to break even for a sage. The friendship shown towards others, those who are not family members, is motivated by personal interest. And thus it is a pretense that lasts only until one's purpose is fulfilled. Such friendship is just like the interest men take in women or bees take in flowers. So what they're really getting at is that Krishna's love for us was just like the kind of interest men take in women. He's just a passing fad. He just, is having fun with us, enjoying. And he's left us. But for them, it was no passing fad. It was no passing fling. It was the love affair of a lifetime. There was no one who was his equal. No one who could take his place. There never was, never would be. There was that. When you have that idea of the soulmate, the one person who is made for you, this was that. Nobody could equal him. Nobody could be better than him. Nor could anyone be like him. It was just not possible. Krishna was the supreme being, the supreme Godhead who had come into this world in his original spiritual form. He was dazzling with beauty, charming in every way. And that is exactly how he wants to be. This is how he wants to be seen. This is how he wants to be loved. Not that he's sitting there like a king who's going to punish you if you don't worship him. No, just so adorable that you cannot help but fall in love. And now he'd gone. He'd gone away to another city. They continue. Prostitutes abandon a penniless man. Subjects abandon an incompetent king. Students abandon teachers once they have finished their education. And priests might leave behind a man who has remunerated them for a sacrifice. In other words, the priest has been paid for his services and now they're gone. Birds abandon a tree when its fruits are gone. Guests leave a house after they have eaten. Animals leave a forest that has burnt down. And a lover leaves a woman who he has enjoyed, even though she remains attached to him. You see, in their complaint, in their grievance, is written all over the deep love that they shared. There is no other way to understand this. Everyone there was in love with him. The girls were in love with him as their lover. The elder women loved him as their child. The boys loved him as their friend, their buddy. Everyone in Vrindavan was in love with Krishna. Thus speaking these words, the gopis, whose words and bodies and mind were fully dedicated to Krishna, Govinda, put aside all their regular work, now that Krishna's messenger Uddhava had arrived among them. Constantly remembering the activities their beloved Krishna had performed in his childhood and youth, they sang about them and cried without shame. They remembered all the different things they did with him. One of the gopis, Radha, see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the name of Radha is not directly mentioned. It is the highest level of love of God, is the love that Radha has. Radha is the divine feminine. She is no different than Krishna. She is him. He is her and she is him. There is no difference between them. He is the divine masculine, she is the divine feminine. They are two sides of the same coin. When the Supreme Being chooses a mate, there is no one who is at his level. That mate is himself. And she is the feminine aspect of him and he is the masculine aspect of her. That's the only way that works. So one of the gopis, Radha, while meditating on her previous association with Krishna, saw a honeybee in front of her. And she imagined it to be a messenger sent by her beloved. Thus she spoke as follows, "O honeybee, O friend of a cheater." So now she's referring to the bee as Krishna's friend. "O friend of a cheater, don't touch my feet with your whiskers, which are smeared with the kumkum that rubbed onto Krishna's garland when it was crushed by the breasts of a rival lover." So she's imagining how Krishna is with other women now. There are other lovers. And their perfume, their kumkum, the reddish kumkum powder that is worn by Indian women on their forehead or even as is now, or sometimes even on their breasts, is now on your whiskers, she's telling the honeybee. And don't come near my feet, she's telling him. Yeah, don't touch my feet with your whiskers, which are smeared with the kumkum that rubbed onto Krishna's garland when it was crushed by the breasts of a rival lover. Let Krishna satisfy the women of Mathura. That's where he'd gone. One who sends a messenger like you will certainly be ridiculed. You see, what was going on was Radha was indirectly chastising Krishna by chastising the bumblebee, which she took for his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee as Madhupa, one who drinks the nectar of flowers. And she addressed Krishna as Madhupati, the Lord of Madhu. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that this and the following 9 verses exemplify 10 kinds of impulsive speech spoken by a lover. This verse illustrates the quality of prajalpa as described by Srila Rupa Goswami in the following verse from his Ujjval Nilamani. Prajalpa is a speech that denigrates the tactlessness of one's lover with expressions of disrespect. It is spoken in the mood of envy, jealousy, and pride. It's very, very important here to understand that even though there is a mood of envy, jealousy, and pride, this is an emotion that is linked to the Supreme Being Himself. This is not regarding any mundane person of this world. Radha's love is no less, even though she's experiencing these feelings. This man, this feeling that she's having, this feeling of upset, this feeling of, he's actually calling it prajalpa, which is like a impulsive speech. Right? So she's speaking from the heart. She's not thinking things through. It's not like there's any kind of logic behind it. These are emotions, and they're not coming from a place of thinking it through or logic. They're coming, even though it sounds disrespectful, and even though it sounds that there's envy and jealousy and pride, it is all for Krishna. And in the spiritual world, what is important to understand is this: everything is sweet. Separation from the beloved is sweet. In fact, it is sweeter than even being together. Envy is sweet. Jealousy is sweet. Pride is sweet. Everything is sweet. It is not tinged with the suffering that we experience in this world. And even though there is a lot of apparent suffering here, I know this, that when we experience true love for Krishna, true love for God, then all the other emotions are there. It's not that it's all bliss and happy, happy, happy. No. It's not all joy, joy, joy. No. All the emotions are there. The entire rainbow of emotions is here. But there is nectar in every one of them. And with every one of them, the love increases. And it grows deeper and deeper and deeper. Radha continues, after making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us, just as you, bumblebee, might quickly abandon some flowers. How is it then that goddess Padma, Lakshmi, willingly serves his lotus feet? Alas, the answer must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his deceitful words. O bee, why do you sing here so much about Krishna, the Lord of the Yadus, in front of us homeless people? Oh, I really invite you to feel the pain. But in this pain, I want you to know lies the greatest love. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, Krishna incarnated as Chaitanya to feel what Radha was feeling here, to feel the depth of her love. He could not understand, why does she love me so much? What is it she sees in me? I want to feel that love. If you want to feel what love is, if you really want to know what love is, you've come to the right place. So in the purport it is explained with the words, Agranam Agrato Naha. Radharani laments that even though she and the other gopis gave up their homes to love Krishna in a conjugal, intimate relationship, he left them and became a prince in the great royal city of Mathura. These topics which the bee is singing are old news to us, she says. Better you sing about that friend of Arjun, Krishna, in front of his new girlfriends. Go there and sing your song, O bee. The burning desire in their breasts he has now relieved because he's with them. Those ladies will surely give you charity you are begging for, she's telling the bee. In this verse, we observe in Radha's mood the seed of jealous anger which arises from an apparent disdain for Krishna, accompanied by a sarcastic sidelong glance directed toward him. In heaven, on earth, or in the subterranean sphere, what women are unavailable to him? He simply arches his eyebrows and smiles with deceptive charm, and they all become his. The Supreme Goddess herself worships the dust of his feet. So what is our position in comparison? But at least those who are wretched can chant his name. Krishna, 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 Uttama Shloka. Please understand that Radha and Krishna are eternally one. They are never separated. And yet, for this Leela, for this pastime, to show us the depth of their love, they separate for a period of time. While, in fact, they only meet at the end of their time on earth, which is 100 years later. It's very sad. But I really invite you to understand that there is something here that is beyond understanding. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states that Radha's speech expressing all the feelings of a disappointed lover indicates an intensity of love for Krishna surpassing even that of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. While all the gopis are perfectly compatible with Krishna in terms of their beauty, temperament, and so on, Radha is especially so. In her forlorn state, Radha indicates to Krishna, you are called Uttama Shloka, the one who is praised with the ultimate poetry and song, because you are merciful to the wretched and fallen. But if you would be merciful to me, then you would actually deserve this exalted name. In other words, she's saying you don't deserve this name because you are not being merciful to me, because you are not coming back. You're not here. Then she tells the bee, keep your head off my feet. I know what you're doing. You expertly learned diplomacy from Krishna, and now you have come as his messenger with flattering words. But he abandoned those who for his sake alone gave up their children. That is, she's referring to herself and the other gopis, who gave up their children, husbands, and all other relations. He is simply ungrateful. Why should I make up with him now? So she's figuring that the bee is a messenger and that bee wants them to make up. She's like, no, I'm not going to make up with him. You know, he didn't treat me right. So we all see these kind of exchanges happen even in our lives as human beings. But here, we're talking about an eternal bond. We're talking about two lovers who are the ultimate, the original soulmates, who are the original twin flames, who are the original beloved. We are all lovers of God. But Radha and Krishna are the original. From them come all of us, all living entities. And all of us have a relationship of love with them. And right now, all of us are separated from our beloved. And we don't even feel it. You and I, and most of us who are at this level, where we're not as like the gopis are, we do not experience that separation. We do not feel that pain. We do not hanker as they hankered. We do not cry as they cried. We do not feel as they felt. But perhaps by listening to them, we'll get an idea of what it feels like. Not only in the earlier chapters, we talked about the ecstasy, and now we're talking about the agony, the pain. But in the pain is so much beauty, and in the ecstasy was so much beauty. In all of them, there is beauty and sweetness. Radha continues, like a hunter, he cruelly shot the king of the monkeys with arrows. Now she's giving different examples. He's talking about a different story now. So he cruelly, this is the time of Ram, he shot the king of the monkeys with arrows. Because he was conquered by a woman, he disfigured another woman. So let me go over these stories here a little carefully. Let's see. So what is being referred to here is the story of Ram, and at that time there was, I'll just read it over here. Like a hunter, he cruelly shot the king of the monkeys with arrows. Because he was conquered by a woman, he disfigured another woman who came to him with lusty desires, again during the time of Ram. And even after consuming the gifts of Bali, King Bali, he bound him up with ropes as if he were a crow. So let us give up all friendship with this dark-complexioned boy, Krishna, even if we can't give up talking about him. So it is saying here that in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada explains the meaning of this verse. Srimati Radharani is saying to the bee, "You poor messenger, you are only a less intelligent servant. You do not know much about Krishna, how ungrateful and hard-hearted he has been, not only in this life, but in his previous lives also. We have all heard this from our grandmother, Purnamasi. She has informed us that Krishna was born in a warrior or Kshatriya family previously to this birth and was known as Ram or Ramachandra. And in that birth, instead of killing Vali, an enemy of his friend Sugriva, in the manner of a Kshatriya, he killed him just like a hunter. Now a hunter takes a secure hiding place and then kills an animal without facing it. Right? So he killed Vali, who was an enemy of his friend Sugriva. And he killed him from behind a tree with his arrow. Killed Vali. So Ram, as a Kshatriya, should have fought with Vali face to face, is what she's instigating. But instead, he killed him from behind a tree. Thus, he deviated from the religious principles of a Kshatriya. The story of the killing of Vali by Sri Ram is found in the Kishkinda Kanda of Ram Charitramanas. The reality was that Ram had killed Vali because Vali had chased his younger brother Sugriv out of the kingdom. He had also abducted and raped Sugriv's, who was his younger brother, Sugriv's wife. He had raped and abducted her. As the upholder of Dharma, Ram had to punish Vali. There is no difference between killing a person who does not respect women in front, you can kill him from the front or kill him secretly. The main thing is that he had to be punished. But Ram also wanted to be merciful, and so he gave Vali moksha or liberation. This is the great blessing, that whenever Krishna or Ram have killed any person who was an asura, a wrongdoer, an evil person, they have blessed them with moksha. Moksha is something that yogis will perform meditation for sometimes hundreds of years, many lifetimes even, and may still not attain. And whenever the Supreme Being is present, he gives liberation freely, even to the most wicked of people. But he will engage them in his lila, in his pastimes. Radha also saying that Ram was so attracted by the beauty of Sita, his wife, that he converted Suparnaka, the sister of Ravana, into an ugly woman by cutting off her nose and ears. Now, if you've gone to our earlier episodes, you would have heard this entire story. And just to know, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam we've been reading and recording it. So please go back and check on that. But it's all there. Anyways, so Ravan's sister Suparnaka had come to meet Ram in the forest. And at that time, Ram was married. Ram was married to Sita. And he was not going to be with any other woman. That was his vow. So he sent his brother Lakshman to deal with Suparnaka. And Suparnaka, although she was an asura, a very wicked woman, she made herself look very beautiful. She could shapeshift. Lakshman tried to get her to go away. She wouldn't go. He tried to give her all kinds of warnings. She would not leave. She was persistent. She was pushy. Finally, knowing who she really was, the sister of Ravan and a very evil person, Lakshman cut off her nose. And he transformed her into an ugly woman. Suparnaka had proposed an intimate relationship with Ram. And as a Kshatriya, Radha is saying he should have accepted her and satisfied her. But he was so henpecked that he could not forget his wife Sita and converted Suparnaka into an ugly woman. So we are having all these interesting sort of twists on the tale of Ram. And a lot of people don't understand many of the things Ram did. It takes some real, deep understanding of the Leela, of the pastime. And they don't even understand what Krishna did and why he did what he did. So one has to hear from a guru, one has to hear from an enlightened being to understand the deep intricacies of what happens in these Leelas and why they do what they do. So when Suparnaka had approached Ram to marry her, he had rejected her, saying that he was already married and had vowed to be monogamous. She then asked Lakshman to marry her, and he too refused. When the demoness Suparnaka persisted Lakshman to teach her a lesson, quickly drew his sword, and since he could not kill her, like a woman, he cut off her ears and her nose. Now, before that birth as a Kshatriya, he took birth as a Brahmin boy. So this is in a different lifetime now, when Krishna had appeared, or rather Vishnu had appeared. Vishnu and Krishna are pretty much the same, just different manifestations. So at that time, Vishnu had appeared as a Brahmin boy known as Vamandev and had asked charity from King Bali Maharaj. And when Bali said, you can have whatever you want, then Vaman, the boy, had asked for 3 steps of land. And in that, the king said, sure. But the king was the king of the entire universe. And Bali and this boy, Vaman, just stepped over with 1 foot across the universe. And then with the 2nd foot, he said, where can I place, you offered me 3 feet of land. I need to place my, where can I place my foot now? And he said, you can place it on my head. Meaning that he would surrender to the boy. He recognized that this boy was Vishnu himself. No one else could have done such a feat. No one else could have, standing in one place, stretched his foot out to the extreme extremities of the universe. Bali was so magnanimous that he gave Vaman whatever he wanted. Yet Krishna as Vamandev ungratefully arrested him just like a crow and pushed him down to the Patal kingdom. So he gave him a place to rule, although basically the king had surrendered to him, to Vishnu. This was all part of a big story. Again, it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he gave him the kingdom of Patal to rule, which is one of the lower planetary systems. So in this incident, Bali had conquered the entire universe. He had taken away the heavenly planets from the Devas, the demigods, and made the Asuras or demons the rulers of the universe. The Devas had prayed to Vishnu to help them. Vishnu then appeared before Bali as a young Brahmin boy. King Bali offered the radiant dwarf boy anything that he desired. Vaman asked for 3 steps of land. The king agreed. With the first 2 steps, Vaman stretched out his leg to the extremities of the universe. He then asked where he should place his 3rd step, and the king, having nothing left to give, offered Vaman his head. Vaman then placed his foot on the king's head and gave him the nether regions of Patal as his kingdom. So then Radha continues, we know all about Krishna and how ungrateful he is. But here is the difficulty. In spite of his being so cruel and hard-hearted, it is very difficult for us to give up talking about him. Now I ask you a question. Why do you think they were having such a hard time in giving up talking about him? Would you talk about someone who you didn't love? Would you talk about someone who you didn't care about? And what if this was the ultimate love of your life? Whether he was with you or whether he had left, you would still continue talking about him. We cannot compare these matters to our human condition because they are about God. What we do know is this, that their love intensified so much that the gopis and Radha began to see Krishna everywhere. Earlier, they would only see him when he was leaving to go from his parents' home to the forest with the cows, and when he would come back in the evening. But now they were seeing him everywhere. Everywhere they looked, they remembered his pastimes. Everywhere they looked, it was as if he was right there with them. They had become, in some ways, one might say crazy. But that was the madness of love. To regularly hear about the pastimes of Krishna is nectar for the ears. You must try it out. When you chant the names of Krishna, when you hear his pastimes, if you develop a relish for that, it is the sweetest nectar. I can say that. It's been 45 years on this journey, and I still say to you that relishing these things are most relishable. And they get better and better and better. And the more you learn and the more you understand, the more deeply you appreciate the sweetness of this nectar. For those who relish just a single drop of this nectar, even once, their dedication to material duality is ruined. What does it mean, material duality? It means that the nature of this world, everything in this world is dualistic. There's good and bad, right and wrong. I like this, I don't like this. Everything here is dualistic. It's hot, it's cold. It's happiness, there's distress. There's birth, there's old age, there's death. So many different contradictions. People are there, people are not there. People are, it's just like... So that's the meaning of the material duality. Your dedication to material duality is ruined. If you even once relish just a single drop of these teachings, which are like nectar, you will find that your dedication to material duality to the world is ruined. Many such persons have suddenly given up their wretched homes and families and traveled here to Vrindavan to wander about like birds begging for their living. Why would people do that? Meera did that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did that. So did Rupa Goswami and Sanatan and so many of the others. They just left everything and went to Vrindavan to deeply dive into and immerse themselves in the pastimes of Krishna. Why? Because there is so much nectar there. No one was giving them any money. They were having to live on next to nothing. They had given up all the comforts of their homes. Why? Why would somebody do that? Only if something was so precious. In the purport, is explained, material duality is based on falsely thinking this is mine and that is yours, or this is our country and that is yours, or this is my family and that is yours, and so on. In fact, there is one absolute truth in which we all exist and to whom everyone and everything belongs. His beauty and pleasure are also absolute and infinite. If one actually hears about this absolute truth called Krishna, one's dedication to the illusion of mundane duality is spoiled. Now Radha continues, faithfully taking Krishna's deceitful words as true, we became just like the black deer's foolish wives, who trust the cruel hunter's song. Thus we repeatedly felt the sharp pain of lust caused by the touch of his nails. O messenger, please talk about something besides Krishna. O friend of my dear one, has my beloved sent you here? I should honor you, friend, so please choose whatever boon you wish. But why have you come back here to take us to him, whose conjugal love is so difficult to give up? After all, gentle bee, his consort is the goddess Sri, and she is always with him, staying upon his chest. In the purport is written, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada explains the context of this verse, he says, while Radharani was talking with the bee and the bee was flying hither and thither, all of a sudden it disappeared from her sight. She was in full mourning due to separation from Krishna and felt ecstasy by talking with the bee. But as soon as the bee disappeared, she became almost mad, thinking that the messenger bee might have returned to Krishna to inform him all about her talking against him. Krishna must be very sorry to hear it, she thought. In this way, she was overwhelmed by another type of ecstasy. These were all ecstatic symptoms that she was experiencing. In the meantime, the bee flying hither and thither appeared before her again. She thought, Krishna is still kind to me. In spite of the messengers carrying disruptive messages, he is so kind that he has again sent the bee to take me to him. Please try to understand. She is seeing and hearing things based on her loving devotion. Have you ever imagined what it might be like to love God? Have you ever imagined what it might be like to be madly in love? Yeah. Srimati Radharani was very careful this time about not saying anything against Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the goddess of fortune, Shri, has the power to assume many different forms. Thus, when Krishna enjoys other women, she stays on his chest in the form of a golden lion. When he is not consorting with other women, she puts aside this form and gives him pleasure in her naturally beautiful form of a young woman. Now, you might wonder, why is Krishna with so many women? What the heck is this? Is he some kind of playboy? Is he some kind of, morally decrepit person? No. You see, if we are all to love God, there are billions of us. Billions. Now, not everybody is on the platform that these incredibly evolved souls are. But think about it. How would God engage in a loving relationship with you? How would you like, if you could have any kind of relationship you wanted to have with God, what kind of relationship would you choose? Would you want God to be your parent? Or would you want God to be your child? Or would you want God to be your friend? Or would you want God to be your lover? Perhaps your husband or wife, or I don't know. How would you want to love God? According to the Srimad Bhagavatam and according to Bhakti Yoga, it is said that Krishna is the supreme male in all of us. So he is the supreme enjoyer. Everything is his, including us. And everything is to be enjoyed by him. We are Prakriti. He is Purusha. So he is the supreme male, and we are all, in that sense, female, feminine, to be enjoyed by him. Now, this is a very controversial point. We live in this world wanting to enjoy the world. We live here wanting to have pleasure, to feel good. But the world constantly keeps surprising us because it's indeed a place of suffering, a place of misery. But we keep pursuing pleasure with dogged intent. Whether that pleasure means that we have to numb out by getting drunk or getting on some drug high, whatever it takes, we want pleasure. But we do not ask, why am I here? What is this world? And if this world was created by God, then why did he create it? Clearly, he would create it for his own pleasure. And we were created by him, so we are also for his pleasure. So, that's what it's trying to get at. She says, O Uddhava, it is indeed regrettable that Krishna resides in Mathura. Does he remember his father's household affairs? Does he remember his friends, the cowherd boys? O Uddhav, O great soul, does he ever talk about us? Will he lay on our heads his aguru-scented hand? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti writes very poetically with deep spiritual insight about the emotions expressed in this and previous 9 verses. He interprets Radha's feelings as follows. Ever since Krishna left, Nanda has been stunned by separation from him and His father, Nanda's treasury rooms, storehouses, kitchens, sleeping quarters, opulent homes, and so on are now vacant, unswept and uncleansed. They are littered with grass, dust, leaves, and cobwebs. Does Krishna ever remember his father's houses? As he sometimes remembers Subal and his other friends who are now lying stunned in neglected homes? The women in Mathura who now associate with Krishna cannot know how to serve him in the way that pleases him most. See, their only desire was to please him. Their only desire was to please him. That is the hallmark of love. When our only desire is to please our beloved, and our beloved's only desire is to please us, it's a two-way street. Yes, if you were with someone who was a narcissist, they'd just want you to please them. They're not interested in pleasing you. But the true thing is, joy, joy, pyaro bhave, soy bhave. What my beloved likes is what I like, and what I like is what my beloved likes. See, so there is that oneness. There is that sense of deep connection. You say, well, no, we have to have our individuality. Yes, as human beings in our egoic condition, we need to keep some separation and we need to keep some individuality. But the ultimate oneness is the oneness with God. And this is what it looks like. Radha continues, when the Krishna's father and his mother and his friends see that he is not satisfied and they ask, how can they make him happy? Does he tell them about us gopis? Krishna must tell the ladies in Mathura, you city ladies cannot please me as much as the gopis of Vrindavan. They are more expert in stringing flower garlands, perfuming their bodies with ointments, playing various rhythms and melodies on stringed instruments, dancing and singing in the rasa performance, displaying their beauty, charm, and cleverness, and skillfully playing at questions and answers. They are especially expert in the pastime of meeting one's lover and showing jealous anger and other signs of pure love and affection. Surely Krishna must know this. Therefore he'll probably tell the women of Mathura, my dear women of the Yadu clan, please go back to your families. I no longer desire to associate with you. In fact, I'm going back to Vrindavan early tomorrow morning. When will Krishna speak like this and come back here to place his hand on our heads? Then he will console us, saying, O beloveds of my heart, I swear to you that I will never abandon you again and go elsewhere. Indeed, I have not been able to find anyone in all the three worlds with even a trace of your good qualities. So this is an expression of divine madness, divya unmad, which is being expressed here. And it may appear as bewilderment, but it is part of the supreme bliss or mahabhav of Srimati Radharani. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, to explain these verse ecstasies, it is virtually only within. Only Radha has this kind of ecstatic way of thinking and feeling. And it is only within her that the ecstasy of bewilderment arises. She has attained to a special stage of this bewilderment, a wonderful state that resembles delusion, known as divya, divine unmad, divine madness. It has many aspects which come and go unsteadily, and one of these manifestations is Chitra Jalpa. This talk induced by her seeing her beloved's friend is filled with covered anger and comprises many different ecstasies. It culminates in her intense, anxious eagerness. Finally, some authorities say that Krishna himself, eager to drink the sweetness of his beloved's speech, assumed the form of the messenger bee. All right, so that's Radha's part. Now Uddhav tries to pacify the gopis, and we're going to see a very different take here. He is a jnani, in other words, a person who has got knowledge. He's very knowledgeable. He's very scholarly. And the gopis are very emotional. So which do you think is a more powerful way to be able to love God? Is it through your knowledge, your intellect, through your study of books and scripture, or is it through your heart? What is the more powerful medium for being able to captivate or get the attention of God and to keep him with you? Think about this. We're going to now see what Uddhav, the friend of Krishna, says to to the gopis. Certainly you gopis are all successful and are universally worshipped because you have dedicated your minds in this way to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. He doesn't even call him Krishna, he calls him Vasudeva. See, Uddhav's friendship with Krishna is as Vasudeva, the Supreme Godhead. In Vrindavan, where Krishna was with the gopis and his family who raised him in the first 11 years of his life, the mood was that of informality. They did not think of him as the Supreme Godhead. They did not think of him as God. They thought about him as an ordinary child. He wanted that. He wanted to be loved as that. He wanted them to not think about him in any special way, even though he was doing all kinds of miraculous things, from killing all kinds of demons to being able to do all kinds of things to save them and rescue them, and every way taking care of them. He did not want to be thought of as special. Well, special in the sense that they loved him, but not special in the sense that he was some great personality. So Uddhav says, because Uddhav is in a different rasa, in a different mood, in a different way of looking at things, just like how people have different ways in which they understand God. Some have a very formal relationship with God. Others want to merge into God. They want to merge into the light. Whatever you want, that's fine. But you also need to know there are different stages of development. So we're going to understand where Uddhav is at. Krishna's friend now. He says, devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is attained by charity, strict vows, austerities, and fire sacrifices, by japa, by study of the Vedic text, by observance of regulative principles, and indeed by the performance of many other auspicious practices. So he is giving all the standard bookish knowledge. By your great fortune, you have established an an excellent standard of pure devotion for the Supreme Lord, a standard even the great sages can hardly attain. See, because he sees how they're always thinking of him. They're always meditating on him. Krishna says, Man mana bhavad mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Give your heart to me. Give your love to me. Surrender to me. And they're already doing all that. And although they were uneducated, they don't know all the philosophy and all these things. They just are in love. By your good fortune, he says, you have left your sons, husbands, bodily comforts, relatives, and homes in favor of the supreme male who is known as Krishna. You have rightfully claimed the privilege of unalloyed love for this transcendental supreme being. This word unalloyed is so important. An alloy is where there is a mixture. So if you had, let's say, 24 karat gold, that'd be pure gold. No alloy, nothing mixed. That's unalloyed gold. But if you mixed it and you put some, they put copper or they put bronze, I'm not sure. They mix it with another metal and then they get 18 karat gold. And then they mix some more metal and they get 14 karat gold. They mix more metal and they get 10 karat gold or 8 karat gold. There's less and less and less gold each time. So similarly, when we have alloyed love, that means it is mixed in with some kind of selfish desire. Unalloyed love is where there is pure love. There is no personal desire. I love you for you. I love you for no reason. I love you just the way you are. I love you regardless of anything, whether you stay with me or you leave me. I love you anyway. And that is the love of the gopis, and that is the love that they have for God. O most glorious gopis, indeed, by exhibiting your love for Krishna in separation from him, you have shown me great mercy, because he is now learning from them. My good ladies, now please hear your beloved's message, which I, the confidential servant of my master, have come here to bring to you. So at this point, Uddhav begins to read to them the message that he has brought from Krishna. Krishna has written in this letter, you are never actually separated from me, for I am the soul of all creation, just as the elements of nature, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, are present in every created thing. So I am present within everyone's mind, within everyone's prana or life air and senses, and also within the physical elements and the modes of material nature. By myself, I create, sustain, and withdraw myself within myself by the power of my personal energy, which comprises the material elements, the senses, and the modes of nature. Being composed of pure consciousness or knowledge, the soul is distinct from everything material and is unevolved in the entanglements of the modes of nature. So it's a very important point that he's making, is that the soul, although witnessing everything that you're doing, is uninvolved in all your business, in all your desires, in all your achievements, uninvolved, and is not entangled in any way. We can perceive the soul, Krishna says, through the three functions of material nature known as wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. As a person just arisen from sleep may continue to meditate on a dream, even though it is illusory, so by the agency of the mind one meditates on the sense objects, which the senses can then obtain. Therefore one should become fully alert during and bring the mind under control. See, we see the world through our senses. We see, hear, touch the world through our senses, and therefore we believe it to be real. But the world is no more real than a virtual reality headset. It's just that in that headset, the technology is nowhere near as advanced as this technology of this human body. This organism is a virtual reality thing, device. And as a virtual reality device, it experiences the world around you as real. Don't make the mistake to think that this world is not real. The world is mithya, or it is false, or it is illusion. It is illusion, and yet it is real. Very real. You go stand in front of a car on the freeway and you will die. There's no getting around that. So the fact is, the world is real, but it is also an illusion. If you look deeply enough, if you look behind and study the atomic nature of matter, you will see that there is nothing real out here. And that is what we need to understand, this dual aspect of it, that it is real and unreal at the same time, real and illusory at the same time. The problem is that we become attached to these unreal things. We become attached to these false things, the stuff of the world. We think that that is the purpose of life, to enjoy our senses. But the senses are only part of this body, and the body is not me. The mind is not me. All the stuff, the knowledge, the intellect, everything that I'm getting is for what? For what purpose? People say, what should my purpose be then? Your purpose should be to wake up to your spiritual identity, to recognize who you really are at the deepest level. That's the purpose of life. The purpose of life is not to gather more stuff, more toys, more wealth. No, that's not you need that stuff, sure, have it. But don't make that the purpose of your life. The purpose of your life is to find out who am I and who is God. And having found that out, to build a loving relationship. And in that loving relationship, to dive deeply and experience the greatest ecstasy of all. We want pleasure, and pleasure is our birthright. But that pleasure, when it is with the world, is only temporary and ultimately leads to suffering. That same pleasure, or rather that same search for pleasure, if applied towards the Supreme Being or God, gives us the ultimate fulfillment that we've been craving. And then it is never lost. And then it never disappoints us. Even though, in this case, as you see, Krishna has left them and gone. But they are experiencing great ecstasy even in that. So this beginning of this journey is, as Krishna is saying here, therefore one should become fully alert and bring the mind under control. That is the beginning of the journey. According to intelligent authorities, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedas, as well as all practice of yoga, sankhya, renunciation, austerity, sense control, and truthfulness, just as the sea is the ultimate destination of all rivers. But the actual reason why I, the beloved object of your sight, have stayed away from you is that I wanted to intensify your meditation upon me and thus draw your minds closer to me. You see, this world is a training ground for all of us. And in that training, through all the hardships we go through all the experiences we have, we will either come closer to the truth or move further away from it. To come closer to the truth is what I was saying earlier, to find out who am I and who is God and what is the relationship between us. So the closer we come to that, the more we have fulfilled the purpose of life. And that which we achieve spiritually shall never be lost. It will never be lost. That is your eternal wealth. Whereas the things of the world that you have accumulated can and will be lost. All of it. The people who you have an attachment to can and will be lost. The things, the places, the pleasures, all of that will be gone. What will remain, the only thing you will take with you when you leave this body will be your spiritual growth. And that spiritual growth is your eternal asset. And no one can ever take it away from you. No one can steal it from you. The only way you can lose it, is to become critical of others on the path. Therefore, the deepest lesson you learn on this path is humility. And humility opens the heart. And when the heart opens, then love comes in. But when there is envy and there is a sense of feeling that you're better than others or you're right, there will be no opening of the heart and there will be no love. All right, so Krishna continues. When her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he is present before her. So this is the deep inner meaning of why Krishna has gone. But also he has gone because he had come here on this earth to do something, which was to annihilate the miscreants who were creating havoc on this planet. And he knew that if he came back to Vrindavan, there'd be no leaving. There would be no leaving. But he had to go out there and he had to set up the war of the Mahabharata, in which all those thousands of kings would come to battle and they would be wiped out from the face of the earth. And such a time will come again in the future, but not for a while. And then there'll be a reset. But that's what happened back then. This was 5,000 years ago. Because he says to them now, your minds are totally absorbed in me and free from all other engagement. You remember me always, and so you will very soon have me again in your presence. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, offer obeisances and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So the same thing he's saying here. Although some gopis had to remain in the cowherd village of Vrindavan and so could not join the rasa dance to sport with me at night in the forest, they were nonetheless fortunate. So he's referring to back then when he was in Vrindavan and when they would get together at night and they would dance in the forest. He says, even though some of them couldn't join us, they were nonetheless fortunate. Indeed, they attained me by thinking of my pastime. So they would, sometimes their family members wouldn't let them get out of the house. Others would just break away and go. But some were stopped by their family members, in which case they would sit in their room and literally teleport themselves through their mind and be there with Radha and Krishna and all the other gopis and singing and dancing in the forest. The women of Vraj were very pleased to hear this message from their dearmost Krishna. His words having revived their memory, they said, it is good that King Kans, the enemy and persecutor of the Yadus, has now been killed along with his followers. So Krishna had killed King Kans. And it is also very good that Krishna is living happily in the company of his well-wishing friends and relatives, whose every desire is now fulfilled. So Krishna had rescued his parents from the jail where they had been kept for 18 years, his birth parents, and now he was getting to spend time with them. Then the gopis said, gentle Uddhava, is Krishna now bestowing on the city women the pleasure that actually belongs to us? We suppose those ladies worship him with generous glances full of affectionate, shy smiles. Krishna is expert in all kinds of conjugal affairs and is the darling of the city women. How can he not become entangled now that he's constantly adored by their enchanting words and gestures? O saintly one, does Krishna, Govinda, ever remember us during his conversations with the city women? Does he ever mention us village girls as he freely talks with them? Does he recall those nights in the Vrindavan forest, the lovely lotus, jasmine, and flowers and the bright moon? As we glorified his charming pastimes, he enjoyed with us, his beloved girlfriends, in the circle of the rasa dance, which resounded with the music of ankle bells. So many incredible memories they're having of those nights in Vrindavan, when Krishna was there with them, playing his flute and dancing with them. How could you ever forget any of this? If you've been there, if you've experienced this, you too would have your heart stolen with the greatest lover of all, the supreme lover, the divine lover, God. When will he return here and by the touch of his limbs bring back to life those who are now burning with the grief he himself has caused? Will he save us in that way? But why should Krishna come here after winning a kingdom, killing his enemies, and marrying the daughters of kings? He is satisfied there, surrounded by all his friends and well-wishers. The great soul Krishna is the Lord of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and he automatically achieves whatever he desires. How can we forest dwellers or any other women fulfill his purposes when he is already fulfilled within himself? Indeed, the greatest happiness is to renounce all desires, as even the prostitute Pingala has declared. Yet even though we know this, we cannot give up our hopes of attaining Krishna. See, on one hand, in spirituality, they talk about giving up your desires. The desires are the cause of suffering. But if that desire is for God, well, then it becomes the most incredible desire of all. And it will always be blissful. It will always be ecstatic. It will always be satisfying to the heart and soul. Even though, in this case, they are separated, and even though it's tearing them up inside, and they're wondering how he's enjoying and with whom he's enjoying and what he's doing, it's so beautiful. Who can bear to give up intimate talks with him, although he shows no interest in her? The goddess Lakshmi never moves from her place on his chest. Dear Uddhava, when Krishna was here in the company of his brother Balaram, he enjoyed all these rivers and hills and forests, cows, and enchanted us with his flute sounds. All these remind us constantly of him. Indeed, because we see Krishna's footprints, which are marked with divine symbols, we can never forget him. They see those footprints all over Vrindavan. O Uddhava, how can we forget him when our hearts have been stolen away by the charming way he walks, his generous smile and playful glances, and his honey-like words? By the way, did you ever think that this would be a description of God? I want you to really consider. We've been sold these ideas of God who is wrathful and who punishes people and sends them to hell. But here you're getting a whole different vision. How can we forget him when our hearts have been stolen away by the charming way he walks, his generous smile and playful glances, and his honey-like words? O Master of the goddess of fortune, O Master of Vrindavan, O Destroyer of all suffering, Krishna, Govinda, please lift this city of this village of Gokul out of the ocean of distress in which it is drowning. Krishna's messages having relieved their fever of separation, the gopis then worshipped Uddhava, recognizing him as none different from Krishna. Uddhava remained there for several months, dispelling the gopis' sorrow by chanting the topics of Krishna's pastimes. Thus he brought joy to all the people of Gokul. All the days that Uddhava dwelled in King Nanda's cowherd village, Vrindavan, seemed like a single moment for the residents of Vrindavan, for Uddhava was always discussing Krishna. And this is one of the things you'll experience, that as you talk about Krishna, as you hear about Krishna, as you chant his name, time disappears. You enter into a timeless reality. And it is so incredible. Because that is what we want. That is when there is great ecstasy. That is the symptom of when spirit is with you, when the spirit of God, the spirit of your soul, and the spirit, when you're in that divine realm of consciousness, time vanishes, suffering vanishes, pain vanishes. You are suddenly transported into another world, into another dimension. That dimension exists even here. But it is only when you are in touch with something spiritual, something that is truly spiritual, that it then transports you into that world. And when you hear about Krishna or you chant his name, that's exactly what happened. Uddhava enjoyed inspiring the inhabitants of Vrindavan by reminding them of Krishna. Seeing how the gopis were always disturbed because of their total absorption in Krishna, Uddhava was supremely pleased. Desiring to offer them all respect, he sang as follows: Among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for God, for Krishna, for Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth, even as a great priest or Brahmin, or even as the creator Brahma himself? How amazing it is that these simple women who wander about the forest, seemingly spoiled by improper behavior, have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Soul. Still, it is true that the Supreme Lord himself awards his blessings even to an ignorant worshipper, just as the best medicine works even when taken by a person ignorant of its ingredients. When Sri Krishna was dancing with the girls and the gopis in the Rasa Leela, the gopis were embraced by the arms of the Supreme Lord. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, or other consorts in the spiritual world. Indeed, never was such a thing even imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the lotus flower, and what to speak of worldly women who are very beautiful according to material estimation. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members who are very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, which one should search for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. Lakshmi, along with Brahma and all the other demigods who are the masters of yogic perfection, can worship the feet of Krishna only within their mind. But during the Rasa dance, Sri Krishna placed his feet upon these gopis' breasts, and by embracing those feet, the gopis gave up all distress. Uddhava then says, I repeatedly offer my respects to the dust from the feet of the women of King Nanda's cowherd village, the gopis. And when these gopis loudly chant the glories of Sri Krishna, the vibration purifies the three worlds. Uddhava then took permission to leave from the gopis and from Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. He bade them farewell and mounted his chariot. As Uddhava was about to leave, Nanda and the others approached him, bearing various items of worship with tears in their eyes. So you can see here how exalted is the position of the gopis, far more exalted than this great learned scholar Uddhava. Krishna's father says to Uddhava, may our mental faculties always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. May our words always chant his names, and may our bodies always bow down to him and serve him. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will in accordance with the reactions to our karma, may our good works and charity always grant us love for Krishna. Notice what he's saying. I don't want anything else. If I do any good deeds, if I have any good karma, may that karma bring me closer to Krishna. I don't want anything else. I don't want some heavenly planet. I don't want some riches. I don't want some fame. I don't want some good body. No. May whatever good deeds I do, whatever goodness there is in me, may that only bring me closer to the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Being. Thus honored by the cowherd men with expressions of devotion for Krishna, Uddhava went back to the city of Mathura, which was under Krishna's protection. After paying homage, Uddhava described to Krishna, Vasudeva, Balaram, and the king Ugrasen the immense devotion of the residents of Vrindavan. He then presented to them the gifts of tribute he had brought from Braj. It's been a very long session today. Sorry if it went on longer than you would have wanted, but I hope you enjoyed this. This is the Uddhava Gita. This is one of the most powerful parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask either now or later if you're watching this, the recording. All the recordings are there on my YouTube channel. You can look for them by typing in @Rohit Juneja. And yeah, you'll find them there. So please write down your questions in the comments. I'd be glad to answer them, or even right now. I'd be glad to hear what you think, how you found this. And if it made any sense to you, and maybe it didn't. And it's okay if it didn't, because you're actually supposed to hear the Bhagavatam right from the beginning, which was 100 episodes ago. That's 100 hours ago, right? So you're supposed to hear it from the beginning. Start with the Bhagavad Gita, then come to the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a progression. But if you've caught it here, that's okay. And if you've enjoyed this, that's wonderful. If you got it, that's amazing. I look forward to connecting with you in future episodes. I'm here every week, every Tuesday. I will be starting a little earlier from next week onwards. And so that means we'll be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 6 p.m. Pacific. And we're starting a little earlier going forward. All right. I look forward to hearing from you in the future. And please stay in touch. Please connect. Please like and subscribe to the channel as well. Okay. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.